So here we go. It is September 19th. Area 51 day. Huh, that's weird. It's palindrome week. 91919. All right. More equations. Here we go. Check. Solve each equation and check. I showed you the other day. You could check on your calculators. We will definitely want to check here today, especially since we have some variables in denominators. So, for instance, on letter B here, there's a value that x is not allowed to be. -4. How come x is not allowed to be -4? Yeah, because then we would have -4 plus 4, which would be 0, and it would be undefined. When the 0 is under, it's undefined. Very good. What about over here on letter A? What is m not allowed to be? 0. Very good. Right off the bat, I cannot replace 0 in place of m, because then it'd be 1 divided by 0. We're not allowed to divide by 0. Okay. All right. There are lots and lots and lots of ways to solve these equations. So my question to you is, how do you want to do it? The easiest and fastest way. Okay. So one method that you could do is we could get common denominators and go that route. That's not the easiest and fastest. So the easiest and fastest would be multiplied by the LCD. You want to do that?
Yep.
Okay. So let's talk about the LCD then. We have denominators of 7m, 21, and m.
7.
What is the LCD? 21 m. Yes, it's got to have an m on there. All right. So if I'm going to multiply by the LCD, then the mathematical way to do that is to multiply each side by 21m. We're allowed to multiply both sides of an equation. I'm saying that rather specifically. This would be the mathematically correct way to do that.
So for that, you don't use the 7 app, you use the 21 that doesn't have variable like m.
So we chose 21 because if you had just like a fraction like 1/7 plus 1/14 is equal to, well, maybe 1. Okay, well, I'm not going to do that. Here, what's the LCD? It's the 14, the bigger. Yeah, LCD, lowest common denominator, is kind of a deceiving thing because it's actually least common multiple that we're looking for. 21 is the multiple of 7 that they have in common. Okay, so, Noah.
Could you times 6 over 7m by 3 over 3 and then -21 by m over m?
Yes, so you are thinking of getting a common denominator, which is another perfectly valid way of doing this. I'm going to do it different. Well, LCD. When I multiply the whole left side by the LCD, I have to distribute that LCD to each term. So this is the mathematically correct way to do it. This is not the way that I do it normally. So normally, if I were to do this, I would literally just multiply by 21m, 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 and I'd smush it in on each term. Okay. But we're going to do that anyway. So that's the next step. So, whoops. I'm going to multiply, thank you, Brian. 21m times 6 over 7m minus 21m times the 1 over 21. And then over here, we have the 1 times the 21m over the m. The reason we multiply by an LCD is because it cleans up. What happens with the m's on top and bottom? What happens with the 21 and the 7? They reduce. Here, the 21 on top and bottom reduce. Here, the m's on top and bottom reduce. And we're left with 3 times 6, which is 18, minus 1m equals 21. So I'm going to subtract 18. 90, 20, what was that, 3? And then divide by my negative. The LCD is a method that takes a while to get used to. All right? It's not a method that I teach to most students. All right? It takes a while to get used to. The other thing is, I never show this step because I do it in my head. I think to myself, if I multiply by 21m, these are going to reduce and leave behind 3 times 6. Okay? I do it in my head. So here the 21s would reduce, leaving me with 1 times m. I'm a negative there. All right? And here the m's reduce, leaving me with the 21. So this whole step I never show because I just do it in my head. Okay? Eric. Of course it would be okay if you don't show this step. This seems confusing, right? Yeah, but I have to show it so you know what's actually happening. Okay? We are multiplying everything by 21m. It just happens to clean up really good. Okay? So I'm going to shortcut that method over here a little bit. Thinking about factoring first here. These are already in sort of bubble form. They can't be factored more. So what is the LCD? 5 times the quantity x plus 4. I heard 5x plus 20, which is fine, but I'm going to leave it in factored form. This factor times that factor, those are all the factors in the denominator. And so I'm going to multiply each term by the LCD, 5 quantity x plus 4, 5 quantity x plus 4, and 5 quantity x plus 4. So I'm really just smushing it on there. It's mathematically improper, but more realistic. What cleans up with this first fraction? The 5 on top and the 5 on bottom reduce, leaving an x plus 4 times 1, but just x plus 4. And then on the second fraction here, what cleans up? X plus 4 on top and x plus 4 on bottom, leaving negative 5x. Okay, and then on the last fraction, what cleans up? Leaving 20. And as long as we understand that it's not 9, we are multiplying by the LCD, right? Okay. So much, I think this is how I would normally, show that step if I needed to show it. So we've got negative 4x plus 4 equals 20. Subtracting 4 and dividing. What happens here? Error. Why?
Because it can't be.
Yeah, we can't, right off the bat we knew this was very special. X was not allowed to be negative 4. This is a false solution. No solution here. Your book uses the empty set. That's the notation for empty set, which is 0 with a line through it. It looks like a no smoking sign. Okay. So empty set is meaning there is no solution set. There is no set of answers that work. Okay. But no solution is how we would write it. If you want to do set notation, If you're going to be a math major, you should use set notation. That's it. For nothing else do you need set notation. All right. Questions on those? Um, 6 over 4n plus 1 is equal to 2 over 3n minus 4. Ooh, hey, this is interesting. What values are n not allowed to be? Ooh, negative 1/4 is good. Negative 1/4 is right. Oh, interesting. Okay. What else? 4 over 3. Did I hear that right? Yeah, 4 over 3. Okay, so, oh, interesting. Ooh, tricky. We haven't done something like this yet. Tell me about denominators. They're not allowed to be 0. The whole denominator is not allowed to be 0. Okay? That's an equation we can solve. So anytime you have a rational function like this, we're trying to figure out what values are undefined, this is just an equation we can solve where we would add the 4. 3n is not allowed to be 4, which means if I divide by 3, n is not allowed to be 4/3. So that's where the 4/3 comes from. If you move the 1 and divide by the 4, that's where the negative 1/4 comes from. Okay? All right? All right, those are interesting. We'll do more of this later, but for now, that's, yeah. All right, so this is commonly known as a proportion, where we have a fraction equal to a fraction. How do you solve a proportion? Cross multiply. Cross multiply is the traditional wording that we use, but it is technically, we're just multiplying by the LCD still. Okay? But cross multiply is the easiest thing to do, which means we're going to take that 6 and multiply it by 3n minus 4, and that's going to be equivalent to 2 times our denominator 4n plus 1. And of course, if you distributed in your head, that's perfect. 6 times 3 is 18n minus 24. And multiply through the 2, so 8n plus 2. And again, if you did that distribute step in your head, then that's great. I'm going to subtract 8n. It's going to give me 10n. And then I'm going to add the 24. 24 plus 2 is 26. And then divide by 10. What is that? 0.6. You can also just reduce the fraction, 13/5. Either answer is fine. Okay. Questions on that one? All right. This is an equation with decimals, which is fine. You have calculators. You could just brute force this with decimals and your brain or your calculator. For me, it'd have to be a calculator because I hate decimals. But I would like to do something because you're at the level where you should really understand what's happening. Okay, the decimal 0.23 has a proper name. What is the proper name of the decimal 0.23? 23 hundredths, right? 23 hundredths. Guess what fraction that is? 23 hundredths. Oh, lordy. Okay. And this decimal 4.3 also, kind of has a proper name. We could write that as a fraction as well. What might that fraction be? 43 tenths. 43 tenths. Yeah, yeah, okay. 0.05 is what decimal? 5 hundredths. So I could write that 5 hundredths R. And then 0.2 you could write as 2 tenths. 2 tenths. I heard 1/5, but we're going to go with 2 tenths. And so there's a problem like this on the first day of college algebra at the OVET, okay? This is the first day, and it always blows kids' minds when I do this for some reason, but I'm glad you guys didn't seem too awestruck by 23 hundredths is the fraction 23 hundredths. Yeah. So very good. So let's say now that we wanted to clear the fractions. So I want to multiply through by the LCD. What's the LCD? 100, right? Okay, so I'm going to multiply each fraction by 100. And clean it up. So what happens with the 100 times 23R over 100? The hundreds cancel out and we're left with 23R. What happens with the 4300 over 10? What is it? 430, yeah. So the 10 goes into 10 once and 10 goes into 100 10 times. So 43 times 10 is 430. Here, what do we get? Just 5R, the hundreds cancel, so we're left with 5R. And then here, 20, yeah. 10 goes into 10 once and 10 goes into 100 10 times. So we're left 2 times 10 is 20. Okay. Which is fantastic. The reason I like to show that is because so many students that I've seen through the years, their teachers just tell them, just move the decimal. Just move the decimal 2 places, right? 2 places, you get 23R. 2 places, you get 430. 2 places, you get 5R. 2 places, you get 20. All right? When teachers say stuff like that, it ruins my life because there's no understanding when teachers say, just move the decimal 2 places. Why? Because you told me to? There's no meaning behind that. So the meaning was the LCD is 100. When we multiply by 100, it has the effect of moving decimals 2 places. Okay? So I find that actually really quite valuable. We're going to subtract 5R and get 18R. Minus 430 equals 20. And then we're going to add the 430. What is that? 450. And then divide by 18. What is it?
25.
20. Really? Even? Cool. Yeah, I guess it should be. Cool. All right, ladies and gentlemen, do you have any questions for me? Okay. Good. You have class practice 35.